Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Welcome back to the Anthony Morris Returns channel. Welcome to the very first episode of the JW Africa series. This is the series in which I examine how the doctrines and policies of the Jehovah's Witnesses affect Jehovah's Witnesses who are based in Africa. And this is not only the very first episode of the JW Africa series, this is also the very first interview on the Anthony Morris Returns channel. And for this interview, I am very privileged to have a longtime friend of mine, a fellow ex-JW and an activist who has actually published books. And this is my friend, Michael. Michael, welcome to the channel.
Hey, Chaka. It's a privilege to be here. It's nice to talk to you after so long.
Yeah, I think it's been perhaps over a decade since we had like an actual conversation. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes. You shunned me, so what did you expect?
I did. I hung my head in shame. So let's roll the intro, and because we definitely have quite a lot to catch up on.
But you can't do that, said one of the critics.
That doesn't bother me.
Really? Again? Really?
Look at that little enemy of God.
Somehow we dilly-and-dally, takes us years, and we wonder why.
What are you waiting for?
I guess just for the viewers, you and I went to the same high school, and I think what's peculiar about our experience is that we actually went to a boarding school. Now, for a lot of my viewers are based outside of Africa, so we have viewers based in America, in the UK, various parts of the UK, and so on. So I think they would find that very, very strange that Jehovah's Witness children were allowed to go to boarding school. So when you reflect on that, Michael, now being an ex-JW, how do you look at that situation that developed with ourselves and other kids as well from JW families?
I think it's a matter of survival in the context of where you're staying. So the way you apply the rules varies. So you find some witnesses in other places may be more strict on certain rules because it's not really that pertinent to their survival. Like here in Africa, our parents knew only one way. You get an education, you go to university, you get a good job. That's how we survive here. Like that's the best course you can ever take. So in as much as the organization would discourage parents from sending their children to boarding school or university or whatever, the environment you are in will force you to sort of overlook or rationalize, so to speak, why you have to take a certain course. So I think that's why here in Africa you find that parents who are JW, they'll still send their children there because that's the best course considering the circumstances in which we are living.
Yeah, I think you bring out a lot of good points there, because in my situation, I actually ended up going after school. I ended up going to Russia. I got a scholarship and went to study at university in Russia. And when I was leaving, I didn't think much about it. But when I got to Russia, it was just not something people did as Jehovah's Witnesses. So then you're very awkward. You have to explain to yourself, you have to explain to others why you are not only pursuing higher education, but you've actually gone abroad to pursue higher education, because it was just, there were a few exceptions. And these exceptions would be usually where either they had already started pursuing the higher education and then they got into the Jehovah's Witnesses, or maybe there was like one of the parents was not a Jehovah's Witness and they heavily insisted that the child goes to university. But it was very, very rare. It was like it almost never happened. So So again, I think this speaks to the lack of understanding that the leadership have about the issues that are faced in various parts of the world, because I think it's all well and good to be somewhere like in the United States or in Europe and to be saying, well, when you finish high school, just do a vocational course, then pursue the full-time ministry, get a part-time job. But those things don't work. I in Zambia, I don't know anyone. When I lived in Zambia, and that was many years ago, I didn't know anyone who had a part-time job that they could survive on. So
No.
yeah.
So it's the circumstances dictate what course you're going to take, despite what the organization says. So you have to look at the context, the background, where these people are living, what are the economic circumstances. That's why you find literally every witness will go to university in Zambia if they have the chance, because that's the best shot they have at having a good life, so to speak.
Yeah.
A good, of course, in quotes.
Yeah. And later on, we're going to speak about a very high-ranking Jehovah's Witness in Zambia who has definitely gone to university. So you have those people, again, excelling in the organization. But let's maybe just roll back a little bit. So for the purposes of the viewers, talk us through how you got involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay. Well, that's a known story. I was born into the truth, so to speak.
Quote unquote, the truth.
Yeah, born into the truth. Yeah, so my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. They still are. Yeah. So obviously, automatically, being born into such an environment, you are raised that way. So you are raised a Jehovah's Witness with the ultimate goal of serving Jehovah, so that you end up in paradise and don't get destroyed at Armageddon. So you are inculcated from these things are inculcated into you from a young age. You attend meetings. Eventually, they organize for someone to study the Bible with you, preparing you for baptism, so that you are actually part of the organization. So that's how it pretty much went down for me. Although, ironically, I think towards the time I got baptized, that was at school, actually, at Hillcrest.
At Hillcrest.
I was about 17.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, sorry to interject there a little bit. So my sense, because you and I, especially when we were sort of grade 11, grade 12, we got quite close. And my sense of your parents was that they were quite secular. And this is how I describe my parents. My parents were they were Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad still is. I lost my mom so sadly a few months ago, and she was right up to the end. But my parents were quite secular in the sense that they did all the Jehovah's Witness things, but at the same time they weren't that into it to the extent that they just sort of maybe shielded you from other things. So they would let me meet up with friends who were not Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. They would very much encourage me to excel academically in school, and that's how we both ended up at Hillcrest, which is going to come up a few times in our discussion today. But Hillcrest was this very elite school. It probably still is in Zambia, where they select the best performing students at a certain juncture in the education process. They select the best performing students from the entire country. And then they put them in this very competitive environment because they want them to excel even higher. So this is how I ended up there. Would I be correct in saying that your parents were quite similar to mine in that they were quite secular? They pursued, secular pursuits, but at the same time they did the Jehovah's Witness things.
Yes, and I think that's what I was about to say. Say, ironically, I would say my parents are not that. Say fanatical to the extent that I became. Yeah, so just like you put it, they were more like secular. They would encourage me to pursue my education with the ultimate goal of going to university and getting a job. So I would say they were not that fanatical like we were at Hillcrest. And at Hillcrest, that's where you can say, we really got into it. That somewhat contributed to what ultimately happened to, say, me. I don't know about you, but for me, I think I really got into it because I was willing to go all the way, know, to go all the way, and I would catch up with all the organization teachings, trying to understand exactly what the organization was about and how to do the right things the right way according to the organization. So I was really adamant, and I would say near fanatical about the organization. Yeah.
Yes.
Teaching.
So
I was willing to
yes,
do whatever.
that definitely did happen. So talk us through how you got to Hillcrest then, because not everybody goes to Hillcrest. Well, there is actually two such schools. I think if the viewers who are watching in Zambia, there are two of these elite schools in Zambia. One is called David Kaunda Technical High School. It's based in the capital in Lusaka, and then you have Hillcrest Technical High School, which is based in the tourist capital, Livingstone. Not everybody goes to Hillcrest. So how did you end up at Hillcrest?
Well, I of course, looking at the background and I come from, I was at a trust school initially when I was little, and a trust school is one of the best schools you can ever take your children to. Yeah, so I excelled academically. I was quite good at school.
You were very good. You were very good.
Yeah. So I was quite good. I was among the best PPU students could ever have. So in grade 8, 9, my parents moved from Luansha, where we're staying, to a place called Kafio Gorge. You know, where they make electricity.
Yeah. They're not doing a really good job, are they?
Right now, no. It's a disaster. Yeah. So there, I found myself among, let's say, average students, or is it pupils? Yeah. So with my background, obviously, I easily excelled. So I really got so much into school, and along with a friend, I made a pact with a friend where we would study together, and we would, encourage each other. So through that encouragement and working together, we really excelled, and I was the best at my school, really. In grade 9, I had about 500 and what? I got 43 marks. I haven't forgotten now. It's been so long.
So you literally only got a few wrong. Like, you only got a handful wrong. I got over 500, but not as much as you. I was just above 500, I think.
Yeah. So I think it's one of the few times I really focused on school, because there was really nothing much else to do. The area is closed up, and my focus was just on school. And so that's what propelled me to achieve the academic excellence that saw me coming to Hillcrest. So when the results came out, I didn't have to apply. I just found a letter waiting for me saying, you've been selected to go to Hillcrest. And I was like, oh, okay, as a boarding school. Yeah, so it was scary to realize what was about to happen. I was about to go into boarding. When I told my parents about it, they were very excited, actually, because Hillcrest is among the best schools you could ever go to. And my mother especially pushed me towards that goal, and so I had to accept, because it was the best thing that could have happened in terms of what my parents were expecting from me. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I wonder where we should go first. I think let's go to the Hillcrest top 10. So you made it to the Hillcrest top 10 pretty much every time. I never made it to the Hillcrest top 10. I wasn't even close. Talk us through the Hillcrest top 10.
Yeah, the Hillcrest top 10. When I came to Hillcrest, I always remember this. I had 99 in maths. That's 99%. Okay, in maths.
You pretty much got everything right.
I was telling myself, I was telling myself, saying, hey, who can get above 99? Like, I'm the best, obviously.
Yeah.
But then this guy comes along and says, I had 100% in maths. I was like, what?
I don't know if you're thinking about the same, or there were quite a few, but one of them came from a JW family, or at least he had some affiliation, and he had 100% in maths. Yeah.
Yeah. So that made an impression on me, and I realized where I was. So I came from where I was the best to a place where I had to find people who were better than me. So
it was very
it was
humbling.
definitely going to be a challenge. Pardon?
I said it was very humbling.
Yeah, it was. So in my class, they were mostly two people I was always like competing against. That was a girl, Sylvia, I'm sure you remember her. And then there was Leonard Siwajene, who unfortunately is passed now.
Yeah, it's very tragic.
Back at school. Yeah, university, sorry. So I never, sometimes I'll beat Sylvia, obviously, but Leonard was always like ahead of me. And no matter what I could do, the guy was was always ahead of me. But somehow I didn't really lose my ability. I would somehow find myself in the top 10 occasionally. So yeah, that made me realize that I still had it. And if I really did focus, I could actually come out first the whole school. But of course, you know what happened? I got obsessed with something else.
Yes.
So I was more inclined towards my religious pursuits than school. So I really didn't break out of that, you know. I didn't really achieve what I know I could have achieved if I had focused squarely on school.
Yeah, you didn't reach your potential. So let's talk about your books now. So from when I started interacting with you at Hillcrest, you had already written some books. I think you had started writing before you came to Hillcrest. Was that correct?
Yeah, writing has always been a part of me. I wouldn't really say publish most of what I write, but not formally at least. Most of it was informally. Like writing was just part of me. I would write stories, I would share them with friends. Then when social media came up, obviously that gave me a platform where I could share my writing with people. Now, one of the most prominent things I ever wrote came out of my desire to defend the truth. So back at school, of course, we'd have all these religious debates about Jehovah, about the Trinity, about going to heaven and all that. So, our friends came from various backgrounds.
Yes.
So as witnesses, we are always trying to convince them out of their stance, out of their beliefs, because we believe we're right. So I had a very close friend who would ask me a lot of searching questions about our religion. And he did a lot of research about our religion, that's Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization. So he would ask me searching questions, and most of my friends would run away from him because they felt to answer his question.
Yes.
But of course, I would always rise to the challenge. I'll be like, we have the truth. I mean, what can somebody ask me? Or what can someone present to me that I would fail to defend if we had the truth? So it was out of that desire to defend the truth that I started having some questions. Because the way it came out was each time I would try to defend the truth, I started feeling as though I have to fight the scriptures to defend the truth. Someone talks about the Trinity, gives you scriptures, and it always felt like I had to explain away what the Bible was saying, which started feeling a bit strange. You know what I mean? Like, why is it that you always have to be defending God and what He wrote? It's like saying, what He wrote there is not actually what He meant. What He meant was this. So when I went to university, I started looking into these things. I got curious to the point where my friend shared, I think he shared a book by, is it
Ray Franz?
Who's that?
Ray Franz.
Ray. Yeah. So I read it, and I was really blown away by what I found out. I was like, okay, so what I think I know, might not be true at all. So what I did was, okay, fine. We need to be objective here. So I set aside everything. I started reading the New Testament,
Right.
from Matthew all the way to Revelation. And as I was reading, I structured my study along the question, what if we are wrong? All this time we're right, but what if we are wrong? So I tackled about 7 pertinent questions, saying, what if we're wrong about the nature of Jesus Christ? What if we are wrong about the 144,000?
Right.
What if we are wrong about things like going to heaven? What if we're wrong about the name Jehovah? So I structured my study along those lines, and I was strictly just looking at the Bible. But to my credit, I was comparing translations.
Right.
I would compare the newer translation with other major translations like the King James Version and all others. And that's what undid everything I thought I knew. For me, my goal was really to prove or to delve much into the history of the witnesses and the Freemason history.
Yeah.
I was more concerned about the truth of the Bible and if we are teaching that truth. So by the time I reached the end of Revelation, everything I knew I had unlearned by myself just by reading the Bible and comparing. So it was really very disturbing period, because imagine coming from where you strongly believe that we are right.
Yes.
We've got the truth.
Yes.
To the point where you see that everything we know or think we know is twisted out of context and is not really according to the truth of the scriptures actually say. So it was quite a devastating find, and I documented everything I found in a book I wrote, What If We Are Wrong. I literally gave away for free to anyone.
I think I've read that book. You did kindly share that book with me. It was absolutely fascinating, and I think we can. Is it okay if we put a link in the description of this video for people who are interested in reading that book?
Yes.
Would that be fine? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we can put a link. They can download it and they can read it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your activism on that front. So one of the things I just wanted to just comment on is, I think this is a really important thing for people who are watching this video that are questioning the Jehovah's Witnesses' belief. You don't necessarily, I mean, if you're watching material like this, then you're already one step ahead. But for a lot of people, it's not watching content like this that wakes them up. It's actually reading the Bible. And that was true for me. When I started having doubts about a lot of things that the Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching, these doubts were actually generated from what they were saying in the literature, either what they were saying in the Watchtower and other publications, or what they were saying on the broadcasting. By that time, the broadcasting had come up. And I just decided for myself that I'm just going to read the Bible like I've never been a Jehovah's Witness. So even I would follow the schedule that they have for the meetings, so the midweek meetings. But then I would just be reading like I'd never read the Bible before. I'd never come into contact with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And as you were saying, Michael, you do find in a lot of places where they're just saying something that's totally contrary to what the actual Bible is saying. And the only way you could have the Jehovah's Witness understanding is if you had read Jehovah's Witnesses publications. And I was like, yeah, hang on, this can't be right. So I think it's a really good thing for people to do, to just open your Bible. You can use the Jehovah's Witness translation if you want, but you're likely, if you don't re-indoctrinate yourself with their governing body's ideas, you're going to come to different conclusions. So sorry. Yeah, and the other thing I just wanted us to go back to now. Let's go back to Hillcrest. So what was it about being at Hillcrest? Because you come into Hillcrest, you're very competitive. Your parents are quite secular. Your mom is encouraging you to excel. But what was it about being in that environment that led you to become fanatical, as you have said?
That's a very interesting question, and I think it's a combination of factors. Of course, now you are in this environment where, as witnesses, you sort of feel like the need to um, to sort of join forces and assist each other, because already intrinsically you know that I'm in an environment where the organization doesn't really support this. So you sort of join forces saying, no, we need to be there for each other. So that sort of adds fire on fire, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So through that association with your fellow witnesses, you sort of, add fire on fire and sort of just reignites your zeal. And also the influence from, we did have a missionary.
The German
who
missionary.
Was, yes. So he would come to hold meetings with us. Of course, outside the normal context of the meetings that you have at the Kingdom Hall, he would come to sort of encourage us every now and then. We'd have a meeting with him and he would talk to us. And that added more to the zeal that I already had. And from then on, that sort of just made my zeal even go up, because now I was so sure, okay, I'm in the right place and I have to do the right thing. And where you have all this access to other witnesses, and it sort of just adds fire on fire, and you are all just on fire, and you just want to do to do what the organization teaches, and coupled with the fact that you believe you are absolutely right and everyone else is wrong, that just sent me over, and I went into overdrive trying to do as much as I possibly could in the organization.
Yeah, indeed. And also there were some obstacles at Hillcrest, being a boarding school. So you weren't allowed to leave the school premises on a weekday under any circumstances. I mean, you could get a pass as an exception if you needed to, let's say, go to a hospital appointment, a doctor's appointment, or you needed to obtain something from the city center, and it was an absolute necessity. Then they would give you a one-time pass as an exception, but you just couldn't walk out and go preaching, walk out of the school premises and go preaching. You couldn't walk out and go to the midweek meeting, which was during the week. That was just not something that was acceptable. And so this created a challenge. And this, what you're talking about, the joining of forces, we said we have to go and speak to the school administration, and we have to get like a permanent pass that allows us to go for our midweek meeting. And we didn't call it a midweek meeting back then. It was the school and the service meeting. We need to get this permanent pass so that we can just walk out. And somehow we managed to get that done. And the other thing that was they used to do this on every Saturday evening. They used to have what they called fellowship, where somebody presented a sermon to the entire school. And this was compulsory. You had to attend that thing. Otherwise, you could get into a lot of trouble. And again, there was this resistance from the JW youth, the students of, we can't go to this thing. And we went and presented to, I don't think I was involved in whoever presented this to the administration, but it was presented to the administration that this is something we don't do. And it created a lot of difficulties again, but there was this, as you said, this fire to do the right thing.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So Hillcrest presented a very challenging environment to deal witnessing. And looking at, how the human mind is, when you are challenged, when you feel you have something to fight for, that just sort of adds to your zeal in a very ironic way.
Yes.
Because if the environment was just so easy, you find that you become relaxed. But because the environment was difficult and it gave us a purpose, something to fight against. And ironically, when you restrain a human being and where they feel like you're trampling on their rights, that's when they actually get more motivated to fight for what they they feel should be their right. So that also compounded to our zeal that we had at Hillcrest, because we felt like this minority which had to fight against the whole world, the whole administration. And that
Yes.
just gave us more fire, more zeal, and more gusto just to fight for what we felt was rightfully our right.
Exactly, exactly. Let's come to so we've spoken about the German missionary. I'm gonna call him, just to protect his identity. I'm gonna call him Habakkuk, as I did on my interview on the in the Evans channel. So I'm interested in what you feel was Habakkuk's influence on your zeal for the Jehovah's Witness activity, because Habakkuk, he, unlike you and I, his parents were, when they were to some extent secular, I will say, but not as secular as we were, because his dad was, he professed to be of the anointed, so he partook of the emblems at the memorial, and they were very zealous. Like, even when they were not pioneering officially, they would be spending like 50 hours as a family in the ministry. Six, because I with Habakkuk, I met him a few years earlier at the previous school when we were in the 8th grade. And they were really into the religion, and I think he was baptized when he was like 11 or something. So what would you say was, would you say there was an influence from him for you to really get into this thing?
Definitely there was. I think towards the end, he became, I would say, the closest friend I had at Hillcrest. He became a prefect, and would stay. He invited me over to his room, so I started staying with him. So we were literally like together most of the time. So obviously, coming from the background that he did, he had a very strong influence on me. And one of the things that he kept, I think that bothered him, was the fact that his father was anointed and he was not. So if his father passed on, then he would never see him again. That's one of the things that he always kept reiterating to me. And of course, I would feel compassion for that. And somehow in my head, I was like, okay, so you both survive. One goes to paradise, one goes to heaven, and you never get to be together. But we would encourage each other like that, and because we had a common interest, so we'd even sneak out, go out to do ministry out there, and obviously we started looking at going into the full-time ministry, and because we were together, we'd encourage each other. We try to do as much as we could, despite the environment. And things, of course, were not easy towards the end, but we were there for each other in ways that I think nobody else was. So our friendship was one of the strongest, I think, one of the strongest friendships I've ever had. Of course, he had his quirks. He was not really an easy person to deal with. I'm sure he can testify. Yeah, he was so and adamant on what he believed was right, and more or less that influenced me to the fact that, of course, I could get along with anyone, even difficult people. He was more or less like that elder brother I never had, because coming from firstborn, of course, was younger than me. I think,
and he firstborn as well in his family.
His nature. Yeah. So because of his nature, it was more like an elder brother, in that sense. So he would guide me. He would shout at me or discipline me if I, try to go in another direction than I was supposed to. So he helped more like keep my faith and my attitude, it helped to keep me in check, so to speak, throughout my my stay with him. Of course, one other thing, of course, he helped me understand the organization from another perspective of the anointed, missionaries, and Bethel, and all those things. So I started having a bit more insight in how the organization worked, and how at the end of it, even these anointed people were really just human beings. Would really think about it.
Yeah. Very interesting. So the next thing I want us to just to talk about is I refer to it as the Hillcrest body of elders. I don't know if that's an accurate representation of this entity that existed within the school. So what was that all about?
You know, the way human nature is, in an environment like what we have at Hillcrest, naturally there'll be some who would rise up as leaders and try to lead the others. And naturally there was that just progression among the pack where there were some, I think I could have also been among those, because I was quite influential trying to make sure everything was running smoothly. And I think I would be in the forefront sometimes, like organizing passes for special events like memorial and things like that. So it's that just natural progression which happens where some assume leadership over the others, just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. So that's what happened. The Hillcrest body of elders, so to speak, was just brothers who felt inclined to just take charge and make sure that we were all in check and we were organized and we were doing the right thing.
Yeah. And because I wasn't baptized at the time, and I think one of the criteria to be on this body of elders was you had to be baptized. But you guys actually used to have meetings, didn't you? You would have meetings amongst yourselves, and then you would make decisions, and then you would actually implement these decisions. Like in the case of Habakkuk, there was actually somebody that started saying that he had a dispute with one of the girls who was also a witness, and that this dispute had to be resolved. And obviously, his nature was he reacted very negatively to that. But this again was one of those things that was implemented by the Hillcrest body of elders.
Yeah. So I think we used to have meetings amongst ourselves. Yeah. Trying to see how we can achieve or do certain things. So self-appointed body of elders, and I think we did have some kind of support from the main congregation, obviously. Yeah, they would encourage that, like you have to watch over your brothers and sisters. So in a way, indirectly encouraging, these few elites, promising witnesses to sort of take charge and make sure everybody was in check. So it was quite an interesting kind of event, because most of my memories now are a bit fuzzy, maybe because the way the brain works, you want to protect you from certain memories, but help you move on. Yeah, but I do quite remember that environment where we one thing I do remember quite well was I would organize certain things like singing by the poolside.
Yes.
Where I would call some brothers, say, no, we need to practice kingdom melodies. By then had learned a bit how to read music and play the recorder, if you remember.
Yes.
So I was able to figure out most of these complex hymns that were given, very complex. And I would figure out how we could sing them, because I noticed at the Kingdom Hall, most of us didn't really know the songs. So that's one of the initiatives I remember very well, where I would encourage all these people to show up. I think that usually used to be around 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. by the poolside, so that we can learn these kingdom melodies. So quite interesting times.
Yes. And the other initiative that I don't know if this was something that was advanced by the German missionary, but there was the daily text discussion. And the way it happened was it went in rotation among the baptized witnesses in terms of who conducted that daily text. And there was a bit of a quirk in that system, because it was not really a quirk, but there was an anomaly in the system where any baptized witness could conduct it, but then you had some baptized witnesses who were extremely naughty, Like one I remember, I don't want to name him, but he was my classmate, and he was very, very naughty. His behavior was not great. He was a prefect as well. And he would be conducting this daily text thing, and I'm like, what? There were also some other witnesses who were actually baptized, but they didn't really associate. They rarely came to the meetings. They wouldn't really engage in these initiatives that were taking place at Hillcrest, like the singing, the daily texts, the JMAN missionaries meeting. They were just doing their own thing. And I remember one of the girls, I'm not going to name her as well, I just protect her identity. She was extremely naughty. They used to call her the Gestapo girl. And I think there was even a talk. Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was. I think the German missionary. He was very much, for what I heard anyway afterwards, was that he was very much pushing for her to get this fellowship, but he was overruled by the other elders. So there was all this stuff happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that there was too much happening, and the JMAN missionary really tried to influence our way of life. With I remember the daily text now. Yeah, so it was so much of that influence, and trying to maybe for him it was trying to protect the interests of the organization by making sure that, despite the challenging environment brothers found themselves in, they were doing the right thing. And because of the challenging environment, like I said, that sort of just created all this excitement and buzz around the brothers at Hillcrest, and how they were doing exemplarily well despite them being in a boarding school and with all these restrictions on them. So that sort of, again, added to the zeal we had, because we were admired, and wanted to keep that status of we can do the right thing despite being in this challenging environment. And that's what even made our zeal even go higher.
Yeah.
I wanted to ascend and be among the brothers, the elders.
The next thing I want to speak about is the Gilead graduate.
We have been serving at the branch for 5 years now, and we're both assigned to the local design construction department, LDC.
No, he's a Gilead graduate. He's a branch committee member. So these are the people we're trying to expose.
It was just shocking to hear so much negativity coming in about this kind of person. So my boss was like, I was saying, how's Michael? Has he stopped that bad habit? So I felt betrayed. I felt this organization is the worst possible place to ever be. How that morphed into them thinking I was gay was quite weird. So
the people that rise in this religion are these people who have no principles.
So whatever agenda they serve, I wouldn't really even bother delving into that. But I know it's not God's.
But you can't do that, said one of the critics.
It doesn't bother me.
Really? Again? Really?
Look at that little enemy of God.
Somehow we dilly and dally. Takes us years, and we wonder why.
What are you waiting for?